Tintin takda din din da, tintin takdina di dina, tina di dina, din takdina, tuna katta takdina, din din da, din din takdina, katin takdina. Tintin takdina di dina, tina di dina, din takdina, tuna katta takdina, din din da, din din.
So thank you everyone for being here, and I think this is a real privilege for me to be part of this with Zamena Hassan, who's written a really important and significant book, Caring for the Carer, in which she describes her journey caring for her parents and her own personal journey of that. And Dr. Jaseem Siddiqui, who is both a mental health professional and has also been on a similar journey caring for his wife. And I think as populations age, we are becoming a diasporic nation, the issue of caring for elderly people, and caring in general is becoming a more and more important topic. So we're going to talk a little bit about this today, and I'd like to start with a question for Zamena. This is an incredible book, and I strongly urge everybody who look at it at least, and it's important, both whether it's for yourself, for other people. It's a valuable contribution. So Zamena, what motivated you to write this book? Can you tell us a little bit about how this journey, the journey you went on, and how it culminated in this book?
Assalamu alaikum. Hi, thank you so much for the introduction, Dr. Humair. Basically, I was taking care of my mom, who got diagnosed with cancer in 2013, and then she passed away in 2016, and then I was with my dad, who passed away in 2021. And basically, between them, it was like an 8 to 10 year journey with the grief and a couple of other people who were sick. So what I realized was that, my parents were amazing, and I would never, ever, I do not regret anything that happened even one bit, and I would do it all over again if I had to. And as much as we love to be there and give up our lives and take care of our parents or anyone we love, there's you become a little isolated in society, because constantly working, constantly being in hospitals and around illnesses and death and dying, and I don't know, the petty things in life seem so frivolous. So when you speak to people who are living their normal lives, you kind of become I don't know, just you're on a different planet. And that isolation creates all kinds of, anxiety. It could create depression. It can, create all kinds of problems in your body. So what I realized after was that I ignored myself so much that I ended up having, diabetes and blood pressure and, all these other side effects from this journey, which could have been, evaded. So for me, after I went through this experience, I felt like, I can't do anything with this knowledge. I can't do anything about it for myself. So I felt I needed to help others from my experience. Because what use is knowledge if you can't, share it and help someone? It was a bit, writing it was not something I'd planned. I ended up, after the whole experience, I didn't want to be around anything that was sad. So I ended up taking acting courses and filmmaking courses. And in the middle of that, I found on Facebook, because I always wanted to write. And my sister used to teach me, since I was born, I think, or I don't know, she's 3 years ahead of me, and she used to teach me whatever she learned. So I was reading at 5 or 6, I don't even remember. So I always wanted to write, but I didn't know how to. So I found this course online just by chance, and I took the boot camp, and the situation of the boot camp was so strategic. It was my mom's hospital was here, my dad's hospital was here, and the graveyard where they're both buried was on this point. So let's say it was a triangle, and the place where the boot camp was right in the middle. And it was such a spiritual experience in the writing course that and then the structure he taught us how to write the book was perfect for a nonfiction, which wasn't my aim. And the closest thing to me to write a nonfiction was this. So it was almost like the book wrote through me, like came to me. I didn't choose it, it chose me. So, you know, I'm just grateful to God I got this chance. And thank you so much for all you guys' support, because I wrote it, and it's not my writing style. I was told to write, like, you know, in a simple version for people, because while they're caring, they don't have time to, you know, delve over things and look too deep into. It was more like a companion, a guide, not to feel isolated, to be able to, you know, read it and say, you know what, I'm okay, I'm not going crazy. Everybody goes through this, you know, all the frustration, the guilt, the shame, the whatever feelings you were going through, it's okay. We all go through it, you know. So I hope it's served its purpose. And
so I'm going to turn to Dr. Jaseem Siddiqui now, and we're really lucky to have him here because Dr. Jaseem is both a psychiatrist who specialized in addictions, has a long, distinguished career as a mental health professional, and then he found himself in a similar position as a carer, in this case for his wife. So Dr. Jaseem, I'm going to ask you, how was the journey for you? You've been a medical professional, a doctor, a psychiatrist, and now you're playing the role of a carer. So how does your journey, do you think, compare? How is it similar? How is it different to someone like Zamena?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. I appreciate having me. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for your asking me to be part of this seminar. I'd like to point out, being a psychiatrist, I tend to look upon things from a different angle, from a totally different perception. I look upon it, being a psychiatrist, I do understand the intricacies of what my wife has. I've been married for 42 years, and my wife is my soulmate. And she ended up with a very rare neurodegenerative disorder. So in that context, I look upon it from a very clinical angle. Having been a psychiatrist for so long, and having even worked with the victims of survivors of torture, I tend to shut off the emotions. Not shut off, but look upon them in a logical manner. And I believe in, I look upon it this manner, that what my wife has, I'm doing whatever I can, taking her to the best professionals. But again, then trust in Allah is the only thing which keeps me going. And how do I manage myself? Well, I manage myself in a different manner. I manage myself in a totally different manner, in a very logical and a clinical manner. It's not that I don't have any emotions, but I tend to use my emotions in a different sense. I defer them. Luckily I have got a lot of support from my family and my siblings, and two of my very dear sisters who are here. They have supported me a lot. They have really, so this support helps me a lot. So this is my perception. I keep myself busy. I've stopped working. I have worked in Ireland all my life. Then when my wife was afflicted with this illness, we shifted over here, because in Pakistan there's a lot of family interaction and support from the family. So that really helps a lot. My siblings and my family, my extended family, they have been very, very helpful to me. They helped me a lot, and my wife is she's still hanging on there, and she's a very strong lady. I look upon it also from a different angle, that she's not in any pain, she's not in any distress. So that's a source of comfort for me, that she's not, as far as the mental side of the thing is concerned, well, she doesn't know what she has, so that's a blessing. As they say, ignorance is bliss. And though it hurts me as well, my wife was a very bubbly personality, she was full of life, but now she's just sitting there on a wheelchair. That hurts me, but I look upon it from a different angle. I look upon it, the gratitude, my gratitude to Allah for giving us 42 years of excellent life, excellent married life. We have I also get a lot of support from my son as well. He's based in New York, and he comes here after every couple of months. He's here, so that helps a lot, and also support from my little grandson.
So a lot of interesting points. I mean, even as a psychiatrist and a mental health professional, you did talk about family support, spirituality, and we'll come to all of these as we go through this. But I wanted to ask, for both of you, or maybe start with Zamena, how does your gender, in your case being the daughter, whereas compared to Dr. Siddiqui, who was the husband, a man, society, gender, how does that play into the caring experience?
So first, I would like to also add that Dr. Jaseem was my therapist also, and now he's part of, with his wife going through her illness, he is now part of my support group too, that I hold every week. So thank you, Dr. Jaseem, for being part of this talk today. As far as the gender goes, it's a great topic. To sum it up, I think when I was born, When I was born, the doctors, because I was a third daughter, the doctors told my mom that it's a boy, so she wouldn't get shocked. And then they told her that it's a girl. When I was caring for her, she was so like, wow, you're doing so much and everything. You're like my son. And I was like, Mom, that's not a compliment. It's a compliment, I get it, but I could be just a good daughter. It's like I'm born in Africa.
Can you hold 1 second?
Which one? Can I use this one?
Go ahead.
Being a girl, we're used to, I think even if we've traveled the world, we've lived in different countries, we're so modern, we still have this thing in our culture that, girls should sacrifice, careers aren't, careers are important, but, compared to the guys, they're secondary. Or, the natural nature, I guess, of a woman also is of the nurturer. And so with all these things combined, and the fact that we also, in our culture generally, I think, we don't encourage self-care. We call it selfish, If someone's trying, you just have to do for others, and, if you think that you need to do something for yourself, you don't even know how to word it, because automatically people will be like, oh, dekho ye to bahut selfish hai, she's just thinking about herself or himself. But I think where the men are concerned, they still get to be a little selfish in a good way, whatever, which we'd call self-care. And I think that way, so I'm a single woman, I was a single daughter, I still am, except they're not around. But, it was very easy, if you're married or if you're working as a man, or the women are married, or, there's the load always, it's automatically comes on the single person. Like even for me, it wasn't a thought. It wasn't like it was just them telling me. It was like, they're sick, and it started before my mom got cancer. So anytime they got sick or anybody got sick in the family, it was my automatic reaction to be like, okay, I'll go, I'll take care, I'll help out. But in this case, when it's terminal illness, we don't know how long it's going to be. And that's, I think, where it gets difficult. Because, who's to say whose life or, whose time is more important? We don't, my siblings, mashallah, they were there for us. Like, the problem was that we were not in one place. We went from Hong Kong to Baltimore to LA to Dubai. And this was because we didn't know, we were in Hong Kong, but the Whipple surgery, the surgery that my mom needed was only, we would only do it in America. We weren't sure that anywhere else could be as good. So, and my sister lives in Los Angeles, but the best place was Baltimore. So we kind of moved around. But my siblings did make it for every emergency, for every single, situation where they could. But basically on an everyday basis, it was, my responsibility to be there. So, the gender thing, like, I think also we're more emotional. Like Dr. Jaseem said, he's more practical, logical, and when you find out your mom is sick and, the prognosis is, that she's going to survive like maximum 2 years, 2.5, which she, passed it and did 2.5. But, your brain just goes into freeze mode, and it's very hard, like, to think, and you don't have time to think. You don't have time to prepare. You find out and you put yourself aside, and you have to just be there for that person. And it's difficult. My parents always took care of me, like, till, I'm 52 today, and they were, my dad passed away when I was 50, or just before I was 50. And he always treated me like a kid. And all of a sudden, one day, to be in charge of their life, their decisions, was insane to me. Like, I didn't know what to do. So I just turned to God, and I think every day when I woke up, I connected to him, and I just asked him to guide me and to work through me, because I didn't know how to go about it any other way. Because, talking to doctors, also when it's an elderly spouse, like Dr. Jaseem is a doctor, so I guess he understands. But, when you're a spouse my dad was about in his late 70s when my mom got sick, now to understand, because he's the man, he's the fixer, and he's supposed to know all the answers, he's the wise one. But, when it's like all this medical jargon, it's very hard to process and to also feel, I think, as the husband, that he couldn't do anything, he was helpless, But, alhamdulillah, he was with us the whole time, and that was really good for me, is that all three of us were together.
So as you're talking about the man's experience, let's maybe turn to Dr. Jaseem. Now, traditionally, in most areas of society, male position is one of privilege. But Dr. Jaseem, as a carer, as a husband, how is it being the male carer? Whereas traditionally, caring falls to the wives and daughters. In your case, it was different. What was that like?
Well, in my case, I took it in my own stride. What I feel, if I'm doing anything right and my conscience is not bothering me, I don't care what the people say. You can't run your lives according to the whims of the people, what they say and what they don't. As long as your conscience is satisfied and what you're doing is correct and evidence-based, as we call it, as we say in the medical terms, it was the treatment which I'm providing, or the care which I'm providing with my wife is evidence-based. So, frankly speaking, I don't care what the other people say, or the other people who has no stake in this, who have no stake, who are not stakeholders. So. I'm kind of maybe my because of my profession, maybe my attitude may be different from the other people, other males who are placed in a similar situation. So this is what I really feel like that. And frankly speaking, in Pakistan there is this trend, what will people say? Well, whatever, I mean, what will people say? Like somebody says, what will people say? Inna lillahi and Allahi raji'un at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter to me what I do according to my conscience, what I do according to the I'm here to I am here to help my wife, not to satisfy people. There are some people who are not even satisfied. Nobody, they're not satisfied with anything. So I'm not there to please them. So I don't care what the people say. I'm frankly sorry for being so blunt and but that's what really I do. But obviously, being a female psyche is different. They are more tender, and they are more kind of they took these things in a different trend. Maybe because of my profession, that's it.
Zamena, you had a...
Yes, I just wanted to add something because, like, when it's your spouse, you're at that same level, right? And you're the husband. You've always been the carer, the fixer, the protector kind of person, right? And she was like, it just came to me. She was my positivity coach. They both used to be my therapist. So, like your whole your situation is a bit different. Where
Yeah.
I'm, like when you're taking care of your parents, it's a bit scary because they know better than you most of the time. And my mom and dad used to be like the people who took care of the whole community and made decisions for them. And, they always knew all about these kinds of things. And my mom used to go fly and take care of the family when they were sick. So, to take like that responsibility, that it was very overwhelming for me. And, if I was supposed to be the one who knew. So if I went and talked to anybody and actually said, I don't know what I'm doing, I have no clue, it would break everyone's hope, So it was almost like I couldn't talk to anybody in my family. And, even if they gave advice or anything, I would, just kind of stick to the doctors and kind of stay within that. Because there was one doctor that was really, really close to my mom, and he treated her like a mother. So basically, whatever he kind of guided us with is what we kind of stuck to, because at the end of the day, we don't know. When it's things like you're taking out organs and, you're doing chemo, which could have weird side effects, and we just didn't know what to do half the time. So it was just you're making decisions for your parents. And the thing is that, it's like how I started in the book. It's like, you take care of your parents because in the Quran it even says, right? Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani sagira. But, we take care of our we should take care of our parents like they took care of us when we were little. But when we were little, we didn't have a mind of our own. We didn't know. We didn't make decisions. This is you're taking care of someone who has full control over their lives, who can make decisions, and, they want some things and they don't want some things. And, even if the doctors say this is good for you, they may not want it, So it's a bit different, and you need a lot of patience. And I don't know, I just find it's, the resistance, and, parents can be stubborn. They can be, get frustrated also, and, you don't know what to do because you're the one who's always been that person, giving them help. Now they're getting you out, you don't know what to do with it. So, this therapy and, these coping mechanisms of, having the support system, like Dr. Jaseem said, to, reach out to other people, to help out. But, it's hard when you're doing it for the first time to give the responsibility to someone else, especially the medical part. You're so scared. So I was a hawk. I was too much. If you ask anybody, I was dictator, and, I wanted to be on top of everything. And, you have to let it go, and you have to, like Dr. Jaseem said, take care of yourself and give yourself the breaks that you need, or else you burn out,
So it sounds like you were very alone in this process, and then finding that support really helped. And just to pick up a point that you just raised, Dr. Jaseem, Zamena has written about caring for her parents. How do you think, both for you and just for people in general, caring for a spouse is different or similar to caring for parents? And then if we can just open up the concept of being a carer for someone who's struggling, facing challenges, to children, to siblings, to spouse, is caring essentially the same, or there's some sort of fundamental significant differences between caring for parents, spouses, children?
You know, I I didn't have a chance to care for my parents. Unfortunately, I was abroad and they didn't require that much. But the nearest thing caring for the parents I came across, I was not a carer, just an observer, was that for my khala, and I was very much attached to her, and she was like a motherly figure for me, and I was not a carer. I was just used to just a, just their care. She was cared by her daughters, and they did, my cousins, they did a wonderful job with her, and they were kind of they were there for her 24/7, and I observed them, their emotions, their things, and obviously they were emotionally much affected. They were emotionally much affected. They would look after her, arrange everything for her, and they put their life at hold, and and they and they looked after all the aspects of her life, caring for her, very tender caring. Very, so I feel for a parent, the caring might be not that much clinical. It might be more emotional, I think, like that, because like they say, the umbilical cord is not cut. With the wife, it is different. I still care a lot about my wife, but I look upon it from a clinical angle. But with my parents, I might have looked at from a different angle. But these two cousins of mine, they are there, Simi and Saba. they, they looked after their mother very well, extremely well. They went out of the way. They went out of the way. So maybe I assess them. I mean, not assess them as such, but as an observer, they really looked after her very well.
Wow, thank you.
So it's more like that with me. Maybe with my parents, I did felt emotional connection with my aunt, with my khala. So I do, the tenderness would have been more for my khala.
So I wanted to say something. It's not just that we care only for our parents or our spouses, or mothers are carers, dads are carers, single parents. Like you're always caring. Even we care for our pets. We care for, I think in a greater, broader term, I think if I can say, all this stuff that's going on in the world right now, with, like COVID and Gaza, and we are carers without even feeling like we don't intentionally care for them, but we are carers of humanity with all these disasters, and so it takes a toll on us. We don't realize it's not we're not thinking about it, but it's always in the back of our head, and that stress, that the anxiety. A lot of people are getting anxiety and stress and issues from all this. So I don't know the answer. I don't know what it is, but I think I would say that just generally in our lives, and especially in these situations, we should be taking out time and taking care of our physical, mental and emotional health, because it adds up, and can be detrimental to us in the long run.
So there's a saying in therapy, self-care is not selfish. And I think that's one of the challenges that both of you have had to face, is that and then often there's guilt and there's all kinds of obligations. So let's just go a bit to the emotional journey, right? Obviously there's a whole range of emotions, and then at the same time, you are trying to take out time for yourself, or maybe you're not, and that comes later. So could you talk a little bit about the emotional journey that you go through? So you've talked about being alone, you've talked about being overwhelmed, We've talked about, parents and all, but maybe a little more on just the range of emotions you may have experienced in this journey.
Yeah, so, of course, when she was diagnosed, it was, insane. Like, it was, your brain and your body and everything just like freezes, and I don't know, like your heart is pounding and you don't know what to do, so you kind of like just block that out and you focus more rationally. And I think you end up looking at life in small chunks, and whatever wins she has or the patient has, as medically, whatever they if they're throwing up, they stop throwing up. Or if they, have a challenge, they go through a surgery and, you're so scared, and then they, come out of it, or, you just kind of make it happy for them. Whatever wins they have, you make them feel stronger about it. And that helps you, whatever, you kind of become like one person. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Like it's you think for them, and you feel what they're feeling, and you kind of become invisible, in a way. You're their shadow. So, I kind of lost myself by the end of it. And when she passed away, it was half like I was so scared of facing my reality, because I didn't remember who I was, that I quickly just went and sat down next to my dad, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, kind of, he didn't need extra. Like, I mean, there was a point where they were both in hospital. Like, he was diagnosed with bladder cancer, but alhamdulillah, he was okay. But, he became elderly, and he was still working and everything. His memory was like a horse even till the end, mashallah. But, he just needed like a companion kind of thing. And obviously, like, I tried to work, but, when he would end up in the hospital, I would have to take that time out and stay with him and, take care of him. So eventually I left that too. But, it gave me like a support, and I didn't have to face my reality at that point. But then when they both passed away, my whole life revolved around them. And, with my dad around, we couldn't really grieve my mom because he also was trying to protect us, and we were trying to protect him. And so, when he passed away in his sleep, it was a complete opposite death for him. But it was so all of a sudden for us that there was no preparation, not that there's ever the right time. But all of a sudden, there was this void. And, I had no one to take care of. I didn't know what, I didn't have to worry about anybody. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a husband. I didn't have kids. I just could do whatever I wanted. But it was too much freedom. I didn't know what to do. And, so initially I was really depressed. Of course, I really missed them, and I didn't know how to process all of it. At one point, I was like, why am I still here? Because I always think, like, there's so many people out there that do good things, and I've lost so many. Like a friend of mine when I was 29, and my parents, like uncles, aunts, parents, so many people that are doing so much for the world and mean so much and are so valuable. And it's like, why is God taking them away, but not someone like me who is not doing anything, And especially at that point. And I was just telling Dr. Humair yesterday that, I was living in this house now because I'd moved in with my dad, and I was, like looking around. I'm like, what am I going to do now? Because, it's just like blank, but in a dark way. And all of a sudden, this one day, I had like I said, I had the cholesterol, blood pressure, whatever. So I had a monitor. I went to the cardiologist, and I smoke. So he, sat down.
Can I just stop you for 1 second? You've said three really powerful, before we forget,
Okay.
I've lost myself, I became invisible, and why am I still here? I mean, these are really powerful phrases that you threw. How did you cope with these? How did you come up with answers? Or when you're experiencing this sense of invisibility, loss, or this question of why am I still here, that's sometimes called survivor's guilt. How do you cope with that? And then I think the same question for Dr. Jaseem. How do we cope with what's helpful, and in your experience, what's not helpful, what to avoid? So if you could just talk a little bit, because there's such powerful things, I can't let them go.
No, so I don't know, should I like? So I had like a brush with death that day, whatever, like in a nutshell, and that made me realize that okay, God has me here for a reason, and I think the way I coped with all this is I turned it on its head, with using religion and spirituality. I think that's what got me through that most difficult time of my life, because I said, okay, if I was gone today, nothing would make a difference going forward, but now that I'm here and clearly God wants me to be here, let me find out why. So, and also I also felt that when my dad was around, I loved him so much, and I would always think of God in the male form, but in a bigger version of my dad. And I would pray to God, but I knew my dad would get it done, But now it was like, it's like almost like God saying, okay, I don't want anybody in my way. I want you to love me directly. Like it's just me and you. And I want you to surrender. I want you to trust me. I'm going to take you where you need to go. And literally, I would sit there and talk to him. And for the first time, I felt that direct connection and that feeling that, yes, he is going to get me through this. It doesn't matter. And he'd already gotten me through. All my life, he'd gotten me through it. So why not now? So coping with through religion, spirituality, family. Family is key. Family and friends. Friends that, so many people show up in your hard times. People you expect may not. People who you don't expect show up. People you do expect show up. Family who you've been fighting throughout that whole, experience, because everybody, has different ways of doing things, or, just going through their motions and don't know how to deal with it, and it comes out in, so many misunderstandings and difficulties. After everybody's gone, that grief softens you. It brings that bond between brothers, sisters, parents, family, whoever is left is, you're the only ones for each other. So however it is, everybody processes it.
So what I'm hearing from both of you, spirituality, family, very helpful. I think essential for dealing with this challenge. But maybe I'll ask Dr. Jaseem this. What is not helpful that you see people turning to, or that becomes a part of the caring experience, that perhaps you would advise people to avoid or be wary of? And then same question for Zamena. What do people need to stay away from or avoid, or so? So both, maybe Dr. Jaseem.
Yeah, the worst thing is people who are poking their nose in the treatment regime, and they have no idea. They are non-professionals. They might be related to you. They would send you these absolutely useless YouTube, and once my wife was, her treating neurologist is one of the topmost neurologists in the Mayo Clinic. She's an expert. She's a well-known, renowned. She's written books on that, and people with no medical backgrounds would challenge my decision of taking her advice. So I would tell them, get lost. I'm very, though otherwise mostly I've got a lot of very positive support from my friend as well. and I've got only one or two friends, and they have been very positively supporting me in any way they can. They are both are medical professionals, so obviously it means a lot. One has accompanied me here as well. Thank you, Arshad. So, I think
Interference and unsolicited advice.
unsolicited advice, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and then they would, so one should be very abrupt with them, tell them to get lost.
Okay, that's it.
I-
Zamna, did you have a similar experience?
Yeah, so
Interference, unsolicited advice?
So
And were you
unfortu-
able to say get lost?
No, so unfortunately, there's no manual for how to behave in these situations, right? So I feel like I feel bad for people. I don't think they know how to or what to do, especially if they haven't been in this situation. But I find the most annoying is when, you're in the thick of things and people come and they want to be good, right? They want to be there for you, but then, pata hai mujhe bhi aisa hua tha. And this happened, and I'm going through this, and they start complaining about their life. And then it's like, oh my God, like, I already have so much, I don't have, like, place for your problems now, right? Like, it's like, okay, I know you're intending well, but that's the same thing, right? You want to tell them to just go away.
So, in retrospect, now that you've been through this, if you were in that experience again, how would you handle it? And I think that could be useful to people. All of this, someone's throwing this. How could you politely, you think, just end that? What
See,
would
that's
you
a
do?
sad thing. When I'm in that situation, I'm not very polite. Um,
That's brilliant.
when I'm in the when I'm frustrated, I can get really angry. But I think now maybe that I'm wiser, and through the support group, I've actually learned to be a little diplomatic. I think I would just tell them, I'm really sorry that you're going through that, but right now I don't have the time to listen. But hopefully, when things are a bit calmer, I can be there for you. But thank you for being there for me right now.
So I think be a bit assertive about your needs,
Yeah.
and not be embarrassed or ashamed to communicate what you need. I
Yes.
think that's what I'm getting from both of
Absolutely.
You
I
know,
couldn't
you know
agree
what
more
I
with you.
find is what I used to do was not, like again, I said, like you just become invisible. So I would do that, but I wouldn't talk about my needs. I would talk about my mom's needs. So I'd be like, you know what, she doesn't need this right now. Please leave us alone. But I guess you need to also think about yourself.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that we miss in the caring dynamic is that you are also a person, you have needs. The carer has needs as well. And those, because of the nature, the illness, the family relationship, carers' needs are often ignored.
So,
I
can
have-
I just add something?
Yeah, sure.
So I kind of wrote this book for the carer to take care of themselves and to think of themselves and whatever. And a lot of the feedback that I got was that, the people who read it were like, oh, thank you so much, you wrote this. Now I know that I should sit with the patient, but I should also sit with the carer and talk to them. And another thing that I found from my support group was that, when you're having the friction with your siblings, or you're having friction with the father or mother or whoever, you can't say anything. So what I found was that one of the people that was in my group was complaining to me and they didn't know what to do. So I said, you know what? I don't want to sell more books. It's not about that. But even take your own book, leave it in front of them and let them read it. So instead of you complaining, I'm complaining for you. And they can actually try to understand your situation. So, it served more than just for the carer. Like it's good for everybody around them. It's because a lot of times we can't explain even the situation. Like so many people were like, oh, I was going through this, but I didn't understand and I didn't know how to put it in words. But when I read your book, I understand what I was going through. So hopefully the people around will understand and be kinder.
So I guess one of the takeaways from this session and this book is carers have needs too. The carers' needs also need to be acknowledged, addressed, and being cognizant or aware of the carers' needs is not selfishness. It's not something to be guilty or embarrassed or ashamed of. So on that note, I'm going to open up the floor for questions. If anybody has any questions, yes, Dr. Murad, please. Can we get the mic there?
Thanks very much for those very powerful experiences. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, I presume you looked after your parents in the US?
So I was between.
Yeah, use my mic.
We started off in Hong Kong, then we went to the U.S.
Great.
and then we were back
Okay.
in Dubai.
So my question is really, what kind of challenges did you face in dealing with the health professionals?
So
That's one. The second one is, when you're faced with adversity, that's when we discover things about ourselves that we didn't know
Yes.
existed. What were the kind of things you discovered that you didn't think you could actually go through or do when you were looking after your parents?
Okay, so for the first one, for the health information and guidance, we have a cousin in Hong Kong who's a medical concierge. He has his own medical concierge company. So he basically was the one who helped us, because at that time we didn't even know what to do. And he has gone through cancer before, so that's why he created this company. And basically we went to Hong Kong because he was there and had his doctors and the whole team ready. So they took over initially, and he did all the research and got us the second opinion with Johns Hopkins, and they diagnosed her from there correctly. The doctors in Hong Kong didn't want her to go to do the Whipple surgery. They were not in favor of it and didn't think she could do it. But we just said, okay, we have 10 days between the chemos. The doctors in America were very confident that they could do it, so we went there, and as soon as they saw us, they were like, this is a walk in the park, we're good. So they just, and it was so quick, the treatment, one of the questions was, how does it compare, like the East and the West, how does it compare? In the West, the doctors are really, I don't know, at least the ones we got, were so humble and caring and supportive and accessible. On this side of the world, I find, other than Dr. Lakarwala, he's my favorite doctor, he's my doctor, the doctors that we dealt with were quite, with the God syndrome, they think they know everything and you can't question them, you can't have a second opinion. So we'd actually flown down my mom's doctors from the States to Dubai, and they said, like, okay, they will do everything they say and we'll work together. The doctors in Dubai said, we'll work together, we'll follow their plan, all this. After they went back, they followed them a bit, but then they stopped. But the doctor in the States was constantly in touch with me, and he trained me to ask them the right questions. So every day it was a 12-hour difference. At night he would text me. I would text him in the day and tell him what happened. In the morning I would have an answer from him, and he'd just shoot out like, oh, what was the orthostatic blood pressure? Yeah.
The second question,
Second
I
question,
think is really
yeah.
interesting one. What did you learn about yourself? And I think, again, for both of you, I'll add to that one the question I also had. What was rewarding about this experience? You've talked about how challenging it was, but are there any positives?
Yes.
So I think for both of you,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
As far as I'm concerned, the very thought that I'm doing my very best for my wife and looking after her at this in her terminal state, that gave me a sense of feeling good, that in spite of the fact whatever she has, I'm doing my level best. So the sense of satisfaction along this is the only thing you can feel about it. I guess if you do your level best, then you don't have any guilt issues or anything like that. And though people may try to make you feel guilty, but you don't care about them. And I've learned to, as a part of my profession, I don't sympathize, I empathize.
No, I agree totally. That's the best thing that comes out of it, is that you spend all your time with the person, which gives you time for amends, gives you time to, enjoy each other, share, like last wish, whatever, like get to know them, and you can say what you have to say when you have that time. And when, Khuda na khasta, they pass away, there's no regrets because you've given it everything you've got.
Everything, absolutely. We all as human beings have limitations. Some, but we don't. But we do our level best. And I think I'd like to point out the bystanders who are there to make comments. Well, you ignore them.
Yeah.
By
But also,
bystanders, it could even mean your relatives as well. They would come there and uske saath ye hua, tum isko kyun nahi dikhate, ye kyun nahi karte. So well, I tend to ignore these things. But my relatives and friends, they have been very, very extremely cooperative. They have been very supporting. Without their help, I wouldn't have, been able to take care of my wife as much as I can.
I think also you learn resilience, persistence. Like, I didn't know how much I could do. You don't think about yourself, so you just do whatever, right? And you can collapse later. My spiritual connection and trust in God just
Absolutely.
multiplied. It was
And in spite of all my logical thinking, I still do take debriefings. I do debriefings by my colleagues in Ireland on the phone. They're very, everybody needs a bit of debriefing. We are human beings. We have our own weakness, weak pointers. That I would suggest that anybody, they should talk to a professional about this, how to handle. Even I do that. I talk to my colleagues, my regular colleagues in Ireland, and they give me a lot of just a chit chat as how to manage it, from the mental health point of view. Of course.
So after my mom, I spoke to a therapist in New York for a while, and then I spoke to Dr. Jaseem and his wife after my dad passed away. So, it really helps to talk to someone.
Any other questions? Yes. Yes.
That was so vulnerable. And I was thinking of acts of, caring and the correlation with notions of grief that almost all of us experience in different ways. And do you think those things are, affected by one's positionality or perhaps the privilege that one has in some way or another? What do you think about it?
So, if I understand correctly, like what the situation that I'm talking about, like to be able to give up your life and
Yes.
take care is dependent on your
Positionality
of
or your-
course, of course. We were one of the topics that we were supposed to bring up, which we didn't get time for, was like all the even if you're on a status where you do have the means and everything, you may be far away. Like Dr. Jaseem's son is living in New York. He can come 3-4 times a year. So many people have 3 kids, 4 kids, but they all live abroad, and when someone gets ill, they cannot travel. So we had a situation where one of the sons had come to visit their mom, and he was supposed to take her back because she used to go to the States and live at the different brothers' houses or kids' houses. And she had an issue with her back, and she couldn't travel. And they were looking for somewhere to, house her here because she couldn't stay at home. She needed attention. So they went to Al Khan Hospital and they said, we're not a long-term stay place. You need to find somewhere else. And, there's a hospice that our family kind of runs or whatever for end-of-life cancer patients. And even though she wasn't, she didn't qualify for that, but she had to end up staying there, because she needed the attention. People who, even if they're in the same city and the people have to work, of course, you cannot do this. I admire people who manage to juggle work, children, the care. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. This book has no ways, it's not supposed to be like just an answer or an equation to figure it out. I think I just put all my thoughts and, anything that I felt that could help someone in that situation, but I don't know the answers. I don't know the solution for this. Maybe, everybody, maybe I can one day make a collection of everyone's suggestions or experiences to give people ideas of how to do this, because it's getting more and more difficult you know. We were talking about the different countries, what they do, and Dr. Jaseem was saying in UK, you get
In Ireland, yeah.
In Ireland.
UK and Ireland, the same, yeah.
Yeah. So can you explain that?
Well, in UK and Ireland, if somebody is sick and you are caring for him or her, the carer gets the carer allowance. That's quite substantial amount to just. So single carer gets about, I don't know about UK, but in Ireland they get about 2,000 euros a month.
And in Dubai and in America, what they have is they have elderly care centers, which now they've opened in Dubai, is like you go there as a daycare, like a daycare type of thing for the elderly. So they have doctors on site, nurses, but they have a lot of, they'll have meditation, yoga, different games. They can socialize, they can do different activities, and at least they get the care and attention they need for the day, and the rest of the family can work and do whatever they need to do. There's another thing, I don't know which country it was, I was telling them that they've just come up with this thing where, let's say I don't have children. I don't know who's going to take care of me later, and I may not be in the hospital. I may have to be taken care of at home. So what they do is, if I take care of an elderly now, I collect money or care credit for the future. And when I get old, I will have that many care credits for someone to take care of me. So these are all different ideas of, what maybe we can try to do in Pakistan. My mom always wanted to open a home. I know we're not open to that kind of concept, but I think with this idea of, the kids working outside in different countries and not being there for the parents, we'll have to start being more open to the idea of homes and care outside of our homes.
May I mention one thing about it? It's fine if you are in the upper socioeconomic strata. What about the people in the middle and the lower economic strata? What are the challenges it faces them?
So the idea was that you open the home for the rich, and that money that you make from the rich, you open it for the people who can afford.
One topic you haven't talked at all about, and it's becoming an issue in Western countries with aging, is the concept of elder abuse and neglect. I don't know, we have no idea what's happening in Pakistan. We tend to believe we have a strong social net and safety structure, but a lot of what comes under definition of elder abuse and neglect is probably quite rampant. With all the respect and the izzat and ihtaram, there is probably some level of abuse and neglect that is happening without us even realizing it. So these are conversations I think we're going to have to continue having. We probably have time for one more question if anybody wants to. I guess not. And we have someone there saying time up. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to both the panelists.
Din